It's a very good afternoon to the Sportsfan Radio panel, gentlemen. It's been a big week in sport. Preliminary finals in the NRL, we'll get to a little bit later. AFL Grand Final, we might start with that. So, panel, what did you think of the day? It was a day game after all. I thought it didn't lose anything. I've got it as my backdrop there. It was a terrific day to start with. Game wasn't too good, but just general thoughts, please.
I was going to say, when Robbie Williams is the highlight of the day.
Well, I would have thought, Professor, a pretty good day. Weather all round, 100,000. Yeah, Geelong were just a machine yesterday. So having watched the Richmond Greater Western Sydney, if you're a Geelong supporter, you would have said it was one of the best days going around. The Swans just really didn't give a yelp. Buddy, well, was he on the ground? Did they make a mistake with Reid? But I don't think any of that mattered because Geelong were just too good, showed why they finished 2 games clear on top. So I would have said, from a Geelong perspective, almost the perfect day.
It's a shame the Swans didn't hear Robbie Williams pre-match. Let me entertain you, because I certainly wasn't entertained with that performance. But you've got to give it to Geelong, and we'll talk rugby league later. When they're underway, they were very similar to the Penrith Panthers. So that the Cats juggernaut, and the problem is when you're down, whatever sport it is, your game plan goes out the window, and what got you there isn't on the table in front of you because you've thrown it out the window.
Well, the Swans are renowned for their pressure that they bring, but yesterday, and watching a bit of a thing on the footy show today, and that they showed the intensity of the Geelong players in Dangerfield and Selwood and Atkins and Guthrie, and that they beat the Swans at their own game with pressure. So they just wanted the ball more. So I would have thought it would have been just a good. I didn't mind the game, actually. I found it not too bad to watch because Geelong were just that good. And there's nothing better than seeing sports when a team's on. You just see the way they do it, and they just molested the Swans.
I've got to share, I don't know which year it was exactly, but not long after I moved to Melbourne, I was working for some reason on a Saturday, and the 2 buses went past on the tram tracks with the police escort, and the Port Adelaide players, they looked like rabbits in a headlight. And then the Cats players looked like they were at a reggae party. They just looked so comfortable and ready to win. I wonder how the Swans looked pre-match yesterday, whether that would have resembled Port Adelaide, because it was a demolition job.
Yep.
Coutta, you've been horribly quiet.
No, I agree with Gelding, actually. Craig from Warragul, he's already lambasting the ratings of the grand final yesterday because ratings are everything, of course. SEN's ratings are pretty good, so he can comment on it. But I think a day grand final suits the game. It suits everything about it, and I certainly didn't think it lost anything. And the build up to the grand final was Melbourne was alive. So first week of school holidays, the G was buzzing. The outside. Professor, you're probably happy because you got pretty bloody good seats in the ballot. I don't know how you get seats in a ballot these days, but anyway, you continue to get them. So good luck to you.
You can see my view forms part of the backdrop for me today.
Was that
amazing.
How you get in the ballot? Oh, okay.
I'll tell you what, mate, I couldn't believe it. We walked in row H on the 4th level, and we lined up exactly opposite the centre circle. So our day was made.
Yep, but they were Geelong, best team all year, as you said, Gelding, clearly the best team all year, and performed that way through the finals. The finals, we had 3 blowouts, and Geelong featured in 2 of those, and unfortunately they were the 2 last matches. Collingwood got to within a goal of them, but if Collingwood had played them yesterday, and I know it's a hypothetical, I don't think they would have got close either. The ability for Geelong to be able to rotate their players in and out during the season. So Dangerfield, your Selwoods, those that sort of have a bit more K's in their legs. Was a really strong reason as to why they were able to finish the year off so well. One thing that surprised me a little bit yesterday, Professor, and was that the performance of Tom Hickey, coming off the back of probably a career season, took Max Gawn to the cleaners, or should say cleaners, but did beat Max Gawn a couple of weeks ago. And yesterday, unfortunately, he wasn't able to revive those memories. First 2 goals from Tom Hawkins were just ruck goals, which we know he does, and really they
which
were
everyone knows, and including the Swans would have known.
Yeah.
That's what he's trying to do, but they just didn't function for it, did it? And he just brushed the Sydney Swans ruckman away, Hickey.
Yeah. So unfortunately, and they said they had a couple of players behind the pack, but I didn't see them. So he had one of those games, but the ratings came through on the players, which I don't think are a massive item. But Chad Warner, if you look at Supercoach or who does all this champion data stats, they said that Chad Warner was the highest rating player on the ground yesterday. But he was the first in the top 10, and I think that goes to show that he might have played a good game, but he had no helpers with him.
I was going to say, I had a breakfast during the week. Damien Hardwick spoke, and he's quite entertaining, actually. But he did say the Swans would win, so it shows even the best can get it wrong. Perhaps, Gelding, it's like what they say, the worst tips are from owners and jockeys, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, funny about that. Our coach, yeah, but he certainly has some views. And I suppose, look, if you're in the lead-up, if you look, you had Geelong sitting way up here above everyone. And if you look at Geelong's season in hindsight now, it was almost a perfect season. They didn't have a lot of injuries. They were able to rest their senior players. They have got the oldest list. This grand final was the oldest list of players ever to win a flag. You know, goes against all the philosophies of pace, but they've added a bit of pace. But everyone was saying, if any side was going to harass Geelong, it was the Swans because of their pressure. And when your number one wood goes missing, like the pressure, because there certainly wasn't any of it yesterday, whether Sydney was overawed by it, it was Geelong that was the pressure side, and they just took it away from Sydney. So, yeah, I don't think any side would have got within cooey of Geelong yesterday, the way they played, the mood they played, the way they were allowed to play. But, yeah.
I read a great article about their recruiter who's been there 20 years, Stephen, is it Wells?
Yep.
I'm just trying to equate that to anything in the rugby league. The only thing I could think that's some sort of parallel that keeps the team towards the top is Craig Bellamy at the Storm, not necessarily on recruitment, but getting the best out of players. But this Wells seems to just find freaks. I mean, that guy that kicked the most goals yesterday, I haven't really heard of. For the Cats. He just keeps finding them.
Yeah, Paul Richmond heard of him.
And Adelaide.
Stegall was at Richmond and delisted for a few issues. He had a few issues there. He then went to Adelaide, had a few issues there for the Adelaide Football Club and was playing Sample League. But again, they were able to pick him up mid-season draft, I think, or early in the year. And with the right type of Eddie Betts going down there basically to coach him, it seems, it's fired and he's fitted in brilliantly with them. But, yeah.
Would it be that the Cats have a no dickhead policy, excuse the French? Because I know at the Storm, Brandon Smith fell out with Bellamy as soon as he was caught with the suspicious powder and talking about playing for the Roosters and winning a comp. The Storm certainly have that sort of culture where you can't be an idiot. Cameron Munster pulled his head in. I'm just trying to think of any Cats with off-field issues. It doesn't seem to be a long list.
No, but I think if you hear Geelong talk, a lot of that praise goes to Selwood as the captain leading, saying we're here to win, we're here to be successful, we're here to play finals. And, of course, yesterday he topped the record beating Michael Tuck's record of 39 finals appearances. He now has the league record at 40. So there's a bloke that's been in that club for a 15-year period, is a four-time premiership player and, is at control. And when you have senior players like Dangerfield and Cameron coming down to play for them, allegedly on less money than what they were offered at other clubs. So, you seem to have that environment that you have a senior group of players, and the kick on Geelong was always, you're too old, you're recruiting older players. One of their older players won the Norm Smith medal yesterday. And the joke was if he had been at Hawthorn, Clarkson may have retired him. So you've got a bloke there, 33, winning a Norm Smith. There's talk about Selwood. Will he retire? What a better way to go out than being a captain of a premiership side. Fantastic to retire on, but then again, he might kick on for another year. He got 12 possessions in the first quarter.
I've got to say, I wouldn't want to be a player in the news off-field issues with Chris Scott to face up to. I think him and his brother, one of them was thrown through a glass table when they were at school and almost died. They're pretty tough guys. I think father issues, but just very intense. And it reminds me a bit of Beveridge out at the Dogs, because I met Liam Pick and he said, we're actually scared of the bloke. Not saying you need to be physically intimidating, but I wouldn't want to be the one sitting down with my big mug on the back page of the news and Chris Scott's opposite me.
Yeah, and look, they've done things right down there for a long period of time, and they may be reaping the rewards, and they've brought a few young players through. So they seem to have a pretty good balance at the moment. It'll be interesting to see how many of this side actually retire and how many play on next year. And again, as Professor and Coutta will tell you, injuries play a big part. Like, you've got to be basically injury-free on your list, or have a few minor injuries and be playing football, good footy at the right time of the year.
Yeah,
you've only got to look at Melbourne last year. Like, they were unbeatable. Like, Melbourne last year wiped Geelong in a preliminary final.
Yeah.
If I remember back that far. So 12 months, that changes. Yeah, Melbourne were flying. They were all fit. They were all fine. Now, this year, Geelong are fit, no injuries. Melbourne had a few injuries. Is that the difference?
Just a question without notice. I think another parallel with rugby league, a lot of the top teams, they often let players go, and it's a massive outcry at the time, but someone knows what they're doing. I'll just put it to you all. I mean, look at Tim Kelly, for example. Can you name a Cats player that's gone somewhere else and succeeded? It seems not only are they great at bringing in players, but they know when to let them go for various reasons. And that's happened at rugby league clubs where they've let go popular players, but because they know what they're doing, and that's what makes success.
Clint Bizzle would be one. Clint Bizzle. That's going back years, but he left Geelong and came to Melbourne, and I think was a great asset to us, Mark. But you're right. I think someone also said, or commented yesterday around, you don't hear Geelong sacking coaches or sacking staff or things like that. It's very much a club that seems to do most things right. And obviously yesterday's a reward for that. So, and the players that are retiring are probably players that will choose to retire, not actually get told that their careers are finishing. So Selwood, like, I'm at a mate's place yesterday, Geelong supporter, and I said, if you're Selwood, like, you're retiring at the top, but he's actually contributed this season. It's not like he's played and it's sort of like he's been a sort of a token or a mascot sort of role. He's actually contributed. And it might be that he says, you know what, as captain, I step down as captain, but he still stays at the club.
But last year, weren't they talking about him being too slow, couldn't find a position for him, had to get him out. So that's a difference of just a couple of niggling injuries in a season of, now he's surrounded and he's getting the ball out to the Geelong players on the outside that just are very, very quick. So
I think the other thing, Gelding, was that they were actually making comment that Selwood playing was hurting their development, as in the kids' development. So Parfitt and Anarkle and these sorts of young kids. And you saw Jordan Clark leave Geelong to go to Fremantle. He had an excellent season down at Fremantle, by the way. But you think that the development of the players, if they're doing it properly by playing games at the reserves level, is that they will be in better stead when they come through than going elsewhere under a different system.
Well, what do you do with their list next year, Coutta? You got Selwood, Dangerfield, Hawkins, Isaac Smith. They've all contributed yesterday. They're all 33, 34, 35 years of age. Do they continue? Like Sean Higgins, I know, has retired. Luke Dalhouse, who they got, is not making the side, so he may move on or retire and things like that. So they've got a few players that are going to retire. These players, I think Cameron would be getting up there now, even in the high 20s. He'd be 28, 29, wouldn't he?
I think he's 28.
So you've got this list with a core group of players who this year contributed well, but in previous years, there's been a bit of a knock on them.
And I think that's the support cast as well. So it's the players that are around them. So obviously this year, and the coaching style or the playing style did change at Geelong. But I think that also comes back to having fit and available players. So Dangerfield carried injuries last year, and it meant that he played a lot of time forward. This year he was able to play through the midfield, and he's explosive.
And got rest during the year.
Yeah, correct. And Selwood was able to come off the bench. You had Max Holmes, who grew as a player this year, good pace. You had Tom Atkins move from the half-back line or a tagging role into the midfield.
Good player.
Excellent player. Yesterday didn't have the great stats, but guess what? Didn't need to. You had Zach Guthrie come on this year. You had the Koning. So they've actually turned their list a little bit to the stage now where you go, well, out of the 23 that played yesterday, there's some players that could probably replace them, which puts them in an unbelievable position. Now, I think they have to turn over 4 positions, or is it 6? I can't remember the actual number each year. So they'll know that, and I think it'll be the discussions will be had within the next sort of week, fortnight, because as we know, we've already started talking about trading and drafting, and players nominating the clubs that they want to go to started 2 weeks ago. And again, I just had that. Why can't we just give that space and time to actually do it after the grand final and go, right, we're going to do the trading or we're going to do the drafting, whatever it is, once the season's over. So you're not having this speculation in the media around who's going where, and rather we should be focusing on what's on the field, because it's actually like this year's footy's been amazing. The finals was, from where I see it, one of the greatest final series of all time. And ignore the fact the grand final was 71 points. Or 81, sorry. They were amazing, Geelong. And it shows the standard that the clubs. So if we're sitting here looking at it and going, well, Melbourne were a fair way off it this year, you can talk about injuries, but I don't think they would have been able to compete. Sydney got shown up on the big stage, but they got a young list. Richmond had injuries this year. They've got players coming in from other clubs that nominated them. You've got Collingwood, who had a great season. So there's all these great stories, but we've already started moving on to next season.
Yeah. I was going to say, you make a very good point about stability, because Hardwick was saying this during the week. I think he's got 3 ex-coaches on his staff. Teague he rates very highly, but he did address the Essendon debacle, and he said the best thing they could do is say we've made a mistake and put Rutten back in. Now, I'm not necessarily agreeing with that, but this is the guy Gelding, who there's not a Richmond fan who wouldn't have wanted him gone at a certain stage, Hardwick. So there is a lot to be said about stability and sticking with the coach and not just knee-jerk reaction and punting the coach. Because he said David Teague's a freak of a football brain.
Ben Rutten.
Yeah. No, but David Teague's on his staff. So
Ben Rutten was at Richmond before he went to Essendon, and now they've got him back because I think the Richmond coaching squad have lost Craig McCraig and Justin Lepage, who went to Collingwood, and have now lost
Kingsley.
Adam Kingsley. Yeah, Adam Kingsley to the Giants. So, yeah, there'll be a bit of a change. But, yeah, look, if these people have been appointed league coaches, they've obviously got the experience. And, clubs don't appoint them willy-nilly. They've had to show something to do it. Did Carlton treated David Teague fairly badly? I would have thought. I don't think anyone sees that. So, yeah, look, that may be Richmond's game, but who knows?
Ken, the other thing, Paul, and I don't know if they would have discussed it, but the board and stability at board level, like we all talk about it and we talk about stable club, but they've changed presidents. They've got no CEO at the moment at Essendon. They're going after coaches. We've talked about on this show previously what's happening at that club and the fact that it's being run by a board member. The word is that James Hird will be the next coach at Essendon.
Oh, do you know something, Coutta?
Well, I'm just saying that the discussion point is that Hird, because the club's so fractured. So what they're thinking is they're going, well, we need to get the club together somehow and we bring a favourite son in, which I don't know if that works, but surely you got to start and go, right, maybe it's start again and just go, right, we start at the top. We go, right, we put the board in place. We appoint the CEO and then we put the coach in place.
Sorry to keep name dropping again, but Hardwick's view on that was Hird is a very smart guy, good footy brain, but he said footy doesn't change year by year. He said it changes almost week by week. If you've been out of the game, he said that would be a monstrous gamble to put someone in. As sharp as he is, probably Mensa level genius, but he doesn't know footy, and you only know it by being in the furnace of coaching. That was his pretty firm view on that. And I think they're friends.
Well, David, just on that, reading the Herald Sun this morning in John Anderson's opinion, he says, old Dons give Hird thumbs up. And he reports James Hird was an animated attendee at the Essendon's past players function on Wednesday night. Not a regular at such evenings, Hird is said to have presented extremely well for the club's vacant coaching position, was warmly received. And as stated on this page 3 weeks ago, former NAB CEO Andrew Thorburn is favourite to inherit the same position at Essendon. So I thought during the week, Adam Uze became a bit of a third favourite to take over at Essendon after a second interview, but I like your mail.
Well, put it this way, Sportsbet doesn't have a market on it, so the horse might have bolted. Excuse the pun, Gelding, because normally they have a market up.
So, yeah, at the end of the day, Professor, it's the footy season's done. We now get into the silly season around players moving. We've got trades coming up. We've got delistings and every club says the same thing. It's a hard decision to delist a player. They've contributed a lot to the footy club. We wish them well for the future. It's a ruthless game. I could go on, and we'll hear that over the next fortnight for all the clubs that have participated in the finals.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen. Well, thanks very much. That wraps the AFL season. There's a couple of other AFL stories, but I think we might leave them till next week. Might have a guest panelist on next week to take us through some of the matters that were raised just prior to the grand final. But let's go to NRL and preliminary final weekend. Paul, one of the bigger weekends on the NRL calendar, and Friday night, the game between the Eels and the Cowboys was an absolute belter.
It was amazing from the outset. Even the fireworks at the stadium. It's a great part of the world, tropical North Queensland. They love their rugby league. It was a real Cinderella story, the Cowboys, but the Eels aren't too far off that in terms of the romance of it all. The longest drought in rugby league is the Eels premiership drought.
Peter Sterling had hair when they last won, didn't they?
The what, sorry?
Peter Sterling had hair the last time they won.
Yeah, he might have. I had an Eels beanie when I was 5, so I can't say I'm a lifelong Rabbitohs fan. I did wish for many reasons that it was an Eels Rabbitohs grand final. My God, that would have been something. But the Cowboys, unfortunately, just ran out at the end. And I was telling everyone who'd listen to get on the Eels. Sorry if you weren't on the mail there, gents. But I just thought the Eels had too much class. The Cowboys, with all respect, I think slightly overachieved, but all credit to them. I just think they got the most out of their team to get to where they did.
Paul, Brad Arthur was talking about Mitchell Moses. Now, Mitchell didn't go down the Joe Danaher road, elected to miss the birth of his daughter and put his endeavours into playing for the team.
He must have a very understanding partner because while she was on the happy gas, he was on the water bottles out in the field. So, his congratulations to him. What a day in his life. Little baby girl born, and he got to have his game and got his Eels into the grand final. So, I don't want to make a comment whether he should or shouldn't, but that was his decision.
Paul, the Eels' first try. For all money, it looked like a forward pass started that off. And I was surprised to learn that the bunker can't overturn the decision that's actually called on the field. So if the referee says it wasn't a forward pass, doesn't matter what the bunker says, they can't overrule it.
That was more forward than Hugh Hefner in his heyday in his spa. I tell you what, it was one of the more forward passes I've ever seen. In commentary, they said 6 metres, which was a slight exaggeration, but it was just a woeful decision, as were some in the Rabbitohs game, which just stunned commentators. It is a shame that the more important the games get, it seems the worse the officiating can be. That was a terrible decision. I still think, though, the Eels were too good on the night.
Paul, I've asked before, and you might be able to help me here, but is there an easier job in the world than being a touch judge?
Well, that's a very good point, because it was in the Rabbitohs game where the guy is standing a metre from the sideline.
Yep.
And he couldn't see what wasn't a small foot. We're not talking a baby foot. We're talking probably a size 12. Couldn't see it, not just touching the line, but firmly on the line. He was 1 metre away. The problem with this bunker is it's made them gun shy.
Mm.
They just don't want to make a call on anything because they know it'll be looked at. So they just, it's a very good point. They don't do a lot.
Well, what they do is they wave flags when the ball goes, and then they walk on the field at times and they wave. The other one, you talk about touchline, but Cole Felt was the same on Friday night. The touch judge could not have been in a better position to actually make a decision, but they let it go upstairs because they thought he'd scored a try, and of course it's going to be reviewed. But it was like, and then they're saying, well, he's wearing white boots, so the white boot might clash with the lines, and it's like, well, hang on. So it's like technology, and it's the same with some of the AFL stuff with the goal reviews, is they're not backing themselves in. They're not actually going, I'm very comfortable that's actually touched the sideline.
He was closer to the white line than Wayne Carey. I couldn't believe that one either. It was just a momentous shocker. And it really does bring the game down. When you've got someone who's paid to be there, in days gone by, we just went on with it. But it does seem the bunker, and some of these bunker decisions, there was a penalty in the Panthers game, which should have been on the Rabbitohs as they get, but the Panthers should have scored a try on an obstruction. It was one of the worst calls I've seen for obstruction. So they've got a bit gun shy up in the box, and it hasn't been a good year for the box. You'd have to give them a grade D, I think, for the year.
Paul, one of the interesting things with the bunker is that it's an actual referee.
Yeah.
So it's actually like, so it might be Ashley Klein, it might be Grant Atkins, but it's normally one of the referees that might actually be involved in. So it's like, is it really it doesn't seem as though it should be. I would have thought that it would be someone totally separate to a referee, that it'd actually be someone that sits in there and does the games. Do you know what I mean? I would have thought that, but it's not. And I think that Ashley Klein's had a horrible year with regards to the bunker. I'm not, and he's regarded as, if not the best referee, one of the best referees in the competition.
It might actually be Stevie Wonder in there at times. You just shake your head at some of the decisions, laughable. And this is coming from a Rabbitohs fan. That some shockers in that game, but we will get to them. And the Panthers way too good in that game, where Rabbitohs leading 12-0. I was getting texts from everywhere. I almost got a text from Ticketmaster with a grand final ticket. I think that all the mates were getting a bit excited, but I knew the Panthers had come back. I didn't expect them to put on 32 points in response to our 12 opening points. So it was a real demolition job and very sobering loss for the Rabbitohs. I think we had a good year, but to end in that manner, where the game plans went out the window, we had one of the worst swinging arms I've seen on Tane Milne. It was just a shocking, grubby act, and it was a very sad way to end what was a good season for the Rabbitohs. Latrell Mitchell didn't do enough. You need your stars to step up. He was pretty absent. Cody Walker flashes early. I do have to say I'm impressed with Cody Walker and Latrell Mitchell not getting sucked into the usual aggro and biff. They're pretty baitable, those two. But they did, at least, if they weren't stars, this is Mitchell more so, didn't get involved in all the aggro. Latrell Mitchell's goal kicking has been a revelation. He's kicking them from everywhere. But we were no match for Penrith once they got on a roll, much like the Swans in the AFL massacre.
I think, Giraffe, you commented very well there. I watched 3/4 of the game, and I just thought Latrell Mitchell, being a winner for you, when I've seen him done some marvellous things to set up plays for you to win, he just was a non-factor really on Saturday night, wasn't he?
It's almost like watching a UFC fighter circling the octagon. You're waiting for some, I won't say punches to be thrown, that's a bad analogy, but he just never injected himself into the action, and it's a superstar who just didn't get involved enough. You could say that his goal kicking was good. You could say that his attitude was great in not getting involved in the things that bring him down, but he just didn't step up when we needed him to. Cody Walker tried his heart out.
You need him to be at his best to beat the Panthers, don't you?
We need him to be like Wayne Carey in his prime, like Gary Ablett Jr. in his prime. We need a guy that grabs the game by the scruff of the neck, like a Tom Trbojevic last year. And he's shown flashes, but it's really been inconsistent, these finals, and it's disappointing because I really thought he'd own these final series, and he just hasn't, unfortunately.
Oh, the other one that I think, I don't know if he's escaped any criticism, but I thought that your number 9 last night really started off okay, but as the game went on, was less daring, and the service he provided wasn't what we've come to expect of him.
Damien Cook,
Damien Cook. And a criticism could be that on the big stage he does fade away. I think we always talk about it, but we talk about your spine, and your spine is your 9, 7, 6 and 1. And last night that was exposed a little bit. You're right that Latrell didn't touch the ball as many times as what you'd hope. But again, he's got to want to get the ball. You see the players like Tedesco, when he's having an off night, what he'll do is he will inject himself into the game. He will want the ball, and he'll want to be that player that can turn the game. And unfortunately for Latrell last night, he just didn't do that, or didn't appear to. But you are playing against one of the best teams that we've seen. They've got minimal injuries. I think the only player last night really missing from them was Taylor May from memory. And they'll start a raging hot favourite next Sunday night against a team, Parramatta, that what an effort to get there. They went up to the Cowboys and beat them in their own deck. All the talk, Paul, was around they're surprised that they only went up a day early, didn't adjust to their climate, their conditions and that. And there was only one team that was running out that game at the end of it, and that was actually the Parramatta Eels.
Yeah, it is like playing in a sauna. But just to get back to you, make a very good point about Damien Cook. Not only was he playing to get into a grand final, he was playing to hold on to his Kangaroos jersey against the guy who I tip is about to take it, Api Coruscant. He has just been instrumental in the Panthers, and he's going to be a big loss when he goes. He's played at more clubs in the living end, Api Coruscant, which is quite interesting because he's such a good player. But I think that Coruscant will take Damien Cook's Kangaroo jersey because Cook just wasn't instrumental enough. We have a rookie halfback, Ilias, who played well defensively. I don't think he was stunning attackingly. He may never be, but solid, which is all you need outside the X factor in Cody Walker. But you're right, with Cook and Mitchell not having great games, we were no chance. And whereas with the Panthers, you've got Mitch Moses, who'd have to be one of the hottest players in the game at the moment. Dylan Brown is just exceptionally talented. Those two will give them Eels a chance. I'll get to it now. I actually think the Eels might win over the Panthers. So mark that down, $3.10 for you punters. I certainly think that they'll cover the line, which would be quite sizable to any line that they have there, probably 8.5 start, I'd say, at that price. I just think the Eels are due. And I think the Panthers probably spent a lot of petrol last night. There's no worries with Jerome Luai. That wasn't even reported. Wasn't even determined by the judiciary. There's no need to go there. And Kikau has benefited from new rules that you can pay a fine rather than be suspended. Some suggest that's encouraging the biff because you can whack someone and pay a fine and get off. But I think that's just the cynics saying that. I actually think that Kikau will be good. He's on his way to your dog's professor next year, so he'll be pretty damaging there.
Paul, the other one, I think that finals do elevate people.
Yep.
They put them forward. And the one at the moment that we're talking about is Sean Lane at the Eels. I suspect that his performances over the finals, but the back half of the season, we'll see him get a Kangaroos jumper. His ability, his line running, his ability to gain yards, but his offloading. If you don't chop the arm down or if you don't wrap the arm up, he's more likely to get an offload, and he's a massive one for next Sunday night.
It's really going to be a good game. He's been a really good player for the Eels. Junior Pala, unbelievable as well. Clint Gutherson is the footballer's footballer. I love that expression. I really think that the Eels are a big chance, and it's on the back of those halves. Moses and Dylan Brown, just really good seasons for both of them. It's good to see. Parramatta's a great club. It really is great for league when they're doing well.
Paul, Kikau and Staines were both charged with grade 1 offences for, in inverted commas, shoulder charges. How did you see those two incidents?
Kikau, the fact he could pay a fine, he got off it. I didn't think it was as bad as what it was reported. The other one was a bit worse, but the worst was Tane Milne. He's got 6 weeks off. Obviously, Rabbitohs are out for the year, but I didn't think either of those were too bad, and they'll be taking their place. The Luai one was laughable. That was even sent upstairs.
All right, Paul. NRLW semi-finals, and as predicted would happen by Sportsfan Radio last week, the Parramatta Eels, who had been on the bottom of the table for all of the NRLW season, won their one game for the year and managed to jump into 4th place, so they're playing in the finals today.
There you go. So even a broken clock gets it right twice a day, Professor. I can strike occasionally with an outsider for you. $3.50 the Eels today, which might be worth a dabble, maybe because I don't like the Roosters, but they've got a halfback there, Gail Broughton, who's so new she doesn't even have a photo up on the NRL website there. So not even a mugshot for Gail, but big watch on her. They had a big win to get into the finals, and we love a team with momentum. That's on later today, and I might be having my beady eyes watching that. But first up, we've got the Knights, who are a superstar team, up against the Dragons. I think the Knights are specials. I'll give it a giraffe guaranteed marking at $1.60 with Jessie Southwell, the halfback. Just watch her tear apart the Dragons. I'm trying to think of my mythical analogy there. Who tore the Dragon apart? St. George, wasn't it?
Yes.
Oh, that's appropriate. Well, they're called the Dragons, might be. There's my moment of the day. But I think the Knights will take to the Dragons like St. George, excuse the pun.
Well, Paul, the Knights thrashed the Dragons last week, so it's a replay of last week's game. Knights 30, Dragons 8. So if they keep that form going, they're straight into the grand final.
And you're getting $1.60. I think that is it's like shooting fish in a barrel.
And the Broncos, Paul, first time since the NRLW evolved, they are not playing in finals. What's happened there?
No, it's not a great finish to the year for either the men or women up there in Brisbane. They've just dropped out of it. So I think it's just some rise of some other teams, some good players to watch. The Dragons halfback's one to watch. Rachel Pearson, she's as tough as an old boot, Rachel. I hope she doesn't mind me saying that, not in looks, but in her skills. She's the Dragons' only real chance today, but I think the Knights are the special of the day.
And it's a double header at Suncorp, and actually a triple header, Paul, because snuck under the radar at 7:35 tonight, the Australian PM's 13 playing Papua New Guinea, and that's obviously a warm-up for next month's World Cup.
And Papua New Guinea, it's a fine football nation, probably similar to the Tasmanian push for a team. They may get a team in the NRL sooner or later, but we do know that Peter V'landys is more intent on focusing on what we've got than looking into new areas, save for Wayne Bennett's new setup, of course. But that's an interesting game, that one. And Papua New Guinea, not much more passion in the game than that country.
So the 13 taking the field for, and I want your comment on this, Paul, the 13 taking the field for the Australian PM tonight, Dane Laurie at fullback, Josh Addo-Carr at winger. Oh, well, Josh Addo-Carr can make the Australian PM's 13, but not the New South Wales State of Origin team.
Yeah.
Selwyn Cobbo at 3, Zach Lomax at 4, Joe Fafita at 5, Matt Burton at 6, Daly Cherry Evans at 7, Tino Fasamaluai at prop at 8, Ben Hunt at 9, Thomas Flegler at 10, Nat Butcher at 11, Angus Crichton at 12, and Josh King at 13. Now, obviously, players who are playing in or played yesterday or in the grand final next week aren't under consideration. But what do you think of that for a 13? A good representation?
Oh, it's a great team. It's just lucky we don't have ScoMo still in power. It'd just be the whole Sharks team. And he'd be there with his scarf. But they're $1.01. So that's how good they are. And Papua New Guinea, $34, Professor. So I'm not going to give you that as an outsider. But
I was just going to say, so the Australian team's a Dalligan special, is it?
Well, the line's 42.5 points. My word. I think they'll show a bit more spirit than that, Papua New Guinea. That might be your bet. They'll get within 42.5.
All right.
I think so anyway. Even if that Storm winger scores a couple of tries just to keep it close. So.
All right, Paul. Well, two big grand finals, both in NRL and NRLW next Sunday. So no doubt you'll be doing your homework to come up with some ideas on those matches for our viewers next Sunday.
Looking forward to it. There's 3 million people in Western Sydney, and that is the very catchment area that Demetrio wanted to catch with his GWS experiment, if I put it that way. So it's a massive rugby league heartland, and that will rate through the roof. Your neutrals will all be going for Parramatta as the underdog. No one could begrudge Parramatta winning a premiership. Brad Arthur's from the Storm coaching school. Very smart rugby league mind, and I think he's due. People are just, apart from Penrith fans, I think that everyone wants the Eels to win. So the ratings, I would say, would be very sizable.
All right, Paul, thanks for that. Gelding, Underwood Stakes Day at Sandown, racing on the hillside track. What are your thoughts for today?
Professor, I like this meeting. Moving out to Sandown for the for the Underwood Stakes. Normally it's Caulfield, of course, but with the grand final being a week earlier this year, we're kind of coming a bit earlier. So I like a few today, Professor. I might leave the first three alone. They look fairly open. I like race 4, number 4, Ali Pectoral. Craig Williams on board, around about the $3.10 mark, Professor. I think this is a horse trained by the Freedmans, and it's showing a bit of form. One first up at Sandown. This is its second preparation. I ran 4th at Flemington. Pretty good run, beaten by a length and a half. So around about the $3 today. We're hoping Young Willow can start us off with a win.
Might be a bit shorter than that now, Gelding.
Okay. Well, it always helps to get on early sometimes, Coutta. Race 5, number 8, Bermudes, trained by Mike Moroney, ridden by Oliver. Look, I thought a bit disappointing first resuming when it ran 7th, beaten 4.5 lengths at Flemington. I think this horse is a bit better than that. Second up, round about the each way mark, Professor, a full 40. So we'll go Bermudes, race 5, number 8.
Gelding, just before you go on, a question without notice, and I haven't looked at them. You did mention D. Oliver there in the saddle.
Yes.
Is Bermudez the favourite?
Yes.
Yes.
And you're still tipping it?
Yes.
Okay. Right. That's all I wanted to know. To know.
Yeah. It's $4.20. It's not Daniel Ed odds.
Yeah. You can get the each way, Professor, but hopefully those ones can start us off well. But now I think we get into the better ones. Race 6, number 4, Waltz on By, trained by Peter Moody, Luke Nolan. Professor, I like this horse. It's a granddaughter of one of our favourites in racing, Miss Finland. So, this is a family that constantly produces good horses. So this 3-year-old filly wants on By.
Can I just stop you there, Gelding? Is he the hottest trainer in the country, Moody, at the moment?
Well, there's a couple called Waller and Kieran Ma. I'd say probably Kieran Ma would be as close to the hottest, with Friday night in the Group 1 Moya having first, second and fourth, just beaten for 30, almost got the trifecta. So I'd be saying they're going like that. But Moody's building a stable up. So as these horses go through the grades, he certainly has he's certainly on a high winning percentage. Giraffe, so yes, he well spotted, he is there. Then race 7 in the Underwood, Professor. Only 6 horses going around, but they're all quality. When you've got an $81 outsider in non-conformers, which ran second in the Caulfield Cup last year, as your rank outsider, that just shows how good the field is. Word around, I'm thunderstruck, bit of a word, but I'm going to rely on one of my old favourites, Professor, and go race 7, number 1, Zaki, to be ridden by Jamie Carr, who comes off riding 5 winners at Mornington yesterday. So she might have her eye in. So race 7, Zaki. But I think if you wait, you might get better than the 240 on offer at the moment. When I think a bit of money will come for I'm Thunderstruck, Alligator Blood, and also Mr. Brightside.
As long as you got a good night's rest in at the B&B down there at Mornington.
Yes. If you read the papers during the week, some interesting comments on Jamie Carr's lifestyle and that, and she did say, I think her and Ben Mellon are split up at the moment, so the off again, on again, off again romance may be off, but she said she just wants to concentrate on her racing at the moment. Forget about the off field. She's just trying to concentrate on field, and hopefully she can take Zaki across the line in the Group 1 today.
Gelding, I just wanted to quote that. So you said she wants to concentrate on her riding. Is that right?
Yes, Professor.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Off we go.
Horse
Yes.
riding you're referring to, Professor?
Of course.
Yep. Thank you.
Yes. And also does a lot of equestrian riding. So she's right into that. So that's very good. Then in the last, Professor, I like race 9, number 4. I Wish I Win. Again, trade by Peter Moody for Giraffe. Look, this horse, very impressive. A bit short at round about the $2, $1.95. But more impressively, won by 4 lengths. First up, was started favourite for the Rupert Clark. Unfortunately, was scratched because it didn't make the field, Professor. So if Peter Moody thinks it can win a Group 1 race, I'm happy to back it in a listed race at Sandown.
Sorry, Gelding. We need to go back there. Like, it was favourite, but wasn't in the field. That's correct, isn't it?
Yeah, there was a third emergency.
Okay.
So
Yep.
it didn't get a run there was no scratchings in the race. So,
like another horse where there were no scratchings in a race.
yeah.
Oh, actually, I forgot to ask her. No, that's all right. We'll play on. Sorry.
Play on. Go on, Gelding.
Come on, I'm ready for them all. Don't worry.
Now, what happened on
Can I get a tip in? That's big odds, massive odds. It's on in 4 minutes for the Giraffe Botany, if you don't mind, from Peter Moody. $21. It's on in race 1 there. But I also love in race 4, I think it is, or you might be able to correct me, Gelding, Groovy Kind of Love, one of my favourite Phil Collins songs there.
Yes.
Well,
I like that. I would have been a bit disappointed in Botany's last run, Giraffe.
Yeah, they said
With
it
the
had
duck
more excuses than Ivan Milat, apparently. So,
All right,
all Wayne
Gelding,
Carey,
Gelding,
big
just
chance
before-
today at the massive right your own odds.
Gelding,
Professor, I might also throw in another one in race 8 if you're taking a quadrella, number 11, Pinstripe. Got too far back last start when resuming, ran second, but they may do them. So, look, I'll be playing later in the day, Professor, from midway on, but I would say to the listeners, have a go at the Giraffe's tip in the first, and we'll see how it goes.
All right. Well, I've got a tip in the first 2, Gelding, and that's on in 3 minutes' time. So race 1, horse 13, Picarones, ridden by Jamie
the Blue
Carr.
Army.
The Blue Army, ridden by Jamie Carr, and showing the very nice each way odds of 650 and 230 at the moment. So I'm all over that. If it can't run a place, I'll give up.
Yes, I like it.
Don't make comments like that. We want you here next week, Professor.
And as we always say, gamble responsibly.
I'm
waiting for David's question here. Come on.
No, I'm just wondering how the drive up to Benalla was
He's
on
got that
Friday.
smirk across his face. He's already laughing at the question he's going to ask me. Go on.
No, I'm just wondering.
He wouldn't be much good at poker, I'll tell you what.
No, I was. Gelding, just wondering how the drive to Benalla was on Friday compared to was it Caulfield on the week before?
Yes. Unfortunately, we didn't take the drive to Benalla on Friday, David, because my lovely trainer, and she's a lovely lady, we won't really say what we think, but we'll say nice things. Text the owners and said she was going to scratch the horse from Benalla.
Oh.
And save it for Moonee Valley next week. So apparently we've gone from unable to run on a heavy track at Flemington on the Sunday to be able to run on a heavy 13 at Benalla on the Friday. So obviously in 5 days the horse as a 6-year-old's managed to be able to run on a wet track.
And came third at Benalla.
Yeah. Loom to win. Just
it was looming.
Whether it was the ground or the fitness. So we got third, but we may be off to Caulfield next up, David, on the Wednesday of the Cup Carnival. So
guineas, 1,000 guineas
1,000 guineas day. So there's a little race there that may be on the radar for DTM.
Well, you'll be getting your $250 tickets for the Black Caviar, I would have thought, Gelding.
I think they cost a bit more than that, David.
Of course, Carnival. So the other thing I wanted to raise, Professor, and I'm going a little bit off script here, but
But geez, he's got a nice grin on his face, hasn't
Well,
he?
Gelding,
He's got loaded questions for us. Beautiful.
Gelding, I'm currently watching the Marsh Cup. Now, for those that don't know, the Marsh Cup is the domestic one-day cricket competition. Now, I think it started on Friday. I'm not sure. Like, no one knows. But it is on. And then the other thing that I want to raise with you, Gelding, is that we're currently playing matches in India. Is that correct?
I'm not up to date with that. Sorry, I've turned my mind to the races, David. So there's just so much cricket on now. It is just ridiculous, But the Marsh Cup, what was it previously called?
It's been called numerous names. It's always a sponsor's name.
Again, another kind of version of cricket that changes its mind. Warming up. Yeah. Tell me the scores.
It's at the Junction Oval.
Right.
You would think in Melbourne the day after Grand Final that you would publish the hell out of it or promote the hell out of it, because people are keen to probably enjoy a frothy.
Yep.
Enjoy a sort of recovery ale or something like that at the Junction Oval.
Yep.
Big fan of Monster.
Or a monster that giraffe's slurping down. But there would be a crowd of maybe, I think there might be 150, 200 people there.
Well, David, if it wanted to take the top off a frothy today, I would suggest that you head out to Sandown, where it's free entry.
Free entry.
On the lawn at Sandown, nice open spaces, not a big crowd, but a reasonable crowd. So we'll see how we go.
And
race one's underway, David. Peconies is sitting second. Mark Stipp at 650, but the Giraffe Step Botany is sitting third. So the boys are right in this race.
So the Marsh Cup. So the other Marsh Cup was played the other day between Victoria and New South Wales, and the game was called off because of light. Now, the Junction Oval doesn't have lights, or City Power Arena or whatever it's called now, doesn't have lights. So you could only bowl spinners, and the match was decided by the Duckworth-Lewis-Kent model. I don't know who Kent is, but he's snuck his name in.
He's added to it.
And a 6 off the last ball got Victoria just over the par score, which meant that they won. So why would you not start it a week later or 2 weeks later, once football's over or once rugby league's over, to actually maximise on free space?
Yeah, I'll just say thank you now, Gelding. The viewers can thank us.
Yes. Professor Stip Peconies, Jamie Carr has just got up paying $5.30 a win and $1.70 the place. But I know the professor might have been on at the juicy odds of $6.30.
I've got 650 and 230, Gelding.
Is that why you're so quiet, Professor? You're watching that race. Jeez.
Now, what were you talking about,
And
Coutta?
I think my £10 for Botany Bay probably in it.
If we're going to play cricket in Victoria, at this, and I can talk about local cricket, they've already cancelled the first game on the 1st of October.
Why have they done that, Gelding?
Absolutely ridiculous. But anyway, we can get up, for the major one. Why don't they start the games at 10 o'clock? Or 9:30 and play during the daylight instead of finishing in the dark?
I don't know. Does cricket just not continue to shoot itself in the foot?
Well, I was going to say is yes. Cricket Australia.
Be interested to see how the 2020 World Cup goes. I got my ticket for Australia and England just because I know it'll be a cracking match. But be interested to see if that doesn't take off, then we've got some real issues with cricket.
Giraffe, we will say a lot of things about cricket, and the Cricket Australia is starting to become like the AFL. We'll just look after the elite bit, and we'll have plenty of all this, and we'll pay our players a lot, and we'll look after ourselves and travel all around the world and things like that. But come down to grassroots level cricket and the development of the game, they're just it would appear to be a lack of interest. Would that be a fair comment, David?
In grassroots community sport, the AFL, and I can only talk from the AFL's perspective, but they've got no interest in community grassroots sport.
Even though they say they have.
Yep, the media deal they've just announced is the largest ever, and we won't talk about Gill's legacy or the Gill Road Show or the farewell tour that he's currently undertaking.
Well, I think that might have ground to a halt this week.
Yeah, I think instead of getting one flat tire, he might have got three. But if people knew that the leagues, grassroots community football leagues, got no funding from the AFL, how would they feel?
Exactly. Very, very similar to Cricket Australia and Cricket Victoria. What they do is look after themselves and their elite level and nothing else.
So what they do, Gelding, is they employ people to then represent. So they'll employ people then to work with the leagues rather than putting money directly into the leagues who know where the money should be going and how it should be helping. And I think that's a frustration across all sports. And I don't think we're only talking football, cricket. I think we're talking every sport that at the moment grassroots community sport is in its tough position. And the hardest thing to get at the moment, and we'll talk about it all the time, is to get volunteers.
Yep.
And why would people want to volunteer? Why do they volunteer? And we've seen through COVID is that people now are going, well, we've got something else we want to do, or we want to go on holidays during the footy season or the cricket season. I then can't commit to the whole season. So everything's changed. Priorities have changed. What people want to do, and it's really adjusting to what you would say is a new normal. And how does that fit in with community grassroots sport?
Coutta, going to a committee meeting on Tuesday night for a local cricket club I'm involved in. So again, we're looking at trying to get into the ground so we can get in the club rooms to set ourselves up for the year.
Yep. That's
an impossibility until apparently 4 days before the season was supposed to start, you can't get into your club rooms. And this is with the football club not being involved in a final or anything like that. But to deal with councils and then to get nothing from Cricket Victoria and nothing from Cricket Australia, we've got to turn over, $100,000 a year just to to stay on the ground.
Yeah, and I think tennis is similar, like we've talked about previously, Professor, and I haven't seen the financials, but previously we've talked about the Australian Open and the fact that ran at a loss, that they had to borrow money to actually fund it, and the impact that then had on Tennis Australia's operations. Now, one thing I will say is that Craig Tiley is still in the role as CEO of Tennis Australia, but also he's still tournament director for the Australian Open. Now, I don't know.
How can the Australian Open make a loss with the crowds and the TV rights?
Well,
that amazes me.
Yeah, the issue that year, Gelding, was that they had to put everyone up in hotel. Like they had to actually do the quarantining and everything like that. I think it was for that year, but they also didn't have the crowds attending.
Yeah.
And so that was the year that was the year before, I think, Professor, not this year, off the top of my head. And then the other thing, and I'll leave it on this, is that Djokovic is still unsure whether or not he'll be able to play at the Australian Open next year. He's unsure.
Well, that's just posturing, isn't it, Coutta?
Well, Craig Tiley will try and get him here. We know what Craig is like, and the treatment that he provides to Djokovic over the years is second to none. So watch this space, but he should never have ever been allowed near the country. The US Open handled it perfectly, and we didn't hear a thing about it. And what should be happening is it should be already being discussed right now that Djokovic is coming or he's not coming. The reasons why. Let's not have the circus that we had last year.
Hey. All right, gentlemen. Well, we got the viewers off to a great start on Underwood Stakes. Go Gelding.
Yes, Professor.
Well done,
Well done.
Professor. Yeah, well done.
Nice.
Good
And-
story insertion. Well done, mate. Pat yourself in the back.
And Jamie Carr continuing from where she left off yesterday, Gelding.
Yes, in fine form. And as I've said on our other show, that's racing, Professor. Nothing wrong backing the Blue Army.
No,
this time of
exactly
year.
right. All right, gentlemen, a very good afternoon to you all, and I'll see you again next Sunday.